Let's let the offseason of Mac Jones continue. Yes, he is still a 49er, and he's begun working out, not just jumping off the high dive in Cabo. Maybe soon we'll see Mac, Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, the group that trained together in Jacksonville, lost offseason. Maybe we'll see that happen again this offseason in Mac's hometown of Jacksonville. But seriously, the fact that the 49ers have not traded Mac Jones, despite assertions from many that they would do so at the beginning of all this, I think only serves to underscore the 49ers' commitment to this 2026 season. Because without Mac or a suitable replacement at QB2, the 49ers would be one play away from disaster and the end of the season in 2026. It's as simple as that. They went 5-3 when Mac Jones had to start in place of Brock Purdy in 2025, and it quite simply saved the season. And it still is amazing to me that the 49ers were able to get Mac on a 2-year contract at the rate at which they got him. I mean, they're going to be paying him a little bit more than $3 million this year. The exact total is going to be determined by how many incentives he meets. He met a great deal of incentives last year because he earned $100,000 per win. So it was $500,000 of incentives with the 49ers winning while he was starting. He's got the same package available here in the 2026 season, but he still is the 41st highest paid quarterback in the league. And the 49ers somehow, some way were able to get that extra year of team control to where a trade obviously still is possible. The only way that I could see it is if somebody offers a ton, and the 49ers might even be holding out for a first-round pick at this point, and you could think about something later on, too, ahead of the trade deadline once the regular season starts and quarterbacks around the league start getting hurt. But I think the 49ers would need a firm, good backup plan, and Kirk Cousins is still out there, so maybe if Mac fetched an extremely high return because of an injury somewhere and Kirk Cousins was still available, so the 49ers were able to sign Kirk to make sure they were insulated at QB. Maybe that would be an option for San Francisco. I think that's a very narrow probability path, though. And the 49ers are still working on Curtis Rourke. We just haven't seen Curtis Rourke play in practice for an extended period of time. He had the 21-day window open last year once he was healed from the ACL, which he played on during college football at Indiana. And maybe Curtis Rourke, after the 49ers get a longer look at him, after he gets some seasoning, can be the 49ers' long-term QB2. But as far as the short-term goes, well, you can bet that Mac Jones and that 2-year contract is something that the 49ers will squeeze every cent of value out of. Now, speaking of value, the 49ers didn't get a lot of value 5 years ago now when they traded up to number 3 to eventually select Trey Lance. Yes, the 5-year anniversary of that happened this week. A half decade ago, San Francisco parted ways with a lot of first-round draft capital to trade up all the way to number 3 and ultimately select the very raw prospect out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance, who now happens to be reunited with Mike McDaniel because the former 49ers staffer, former 49ers OC, is Jim Harbaugh's coordinator in, I'll say San Diego. It's technically in Los Angeles, but with the Chargers. So Harbaugh and McDaniel are coaching Lance, who's re-signed with the Chargers, who's obviously a backup now to Justin Herbert. Brock Purdy quickly outpaced Lance in 2022, and that was history for the 49ers. Just taking a look at that quarterback class, though, in 2021, it's cringeworthy to look back at. Everybody was billing it as the great quarterback class of the decade, that this was going to change the NFL. We'd see a bunch of guys become really successful starters. And, well, it turns out that the very last pick of the next draft in 2022, a draft which wasn't supposed to be good for quarterbacks, was way better than any QB from the highly touted 2021 class. And yes, I am talking about Brock Purdy. But we can look at the performance now retrospectively. We could do a redraft if we wanted to of 2021 Trevor Lawrence has gotten the most snaps out of any QB, 3,165 dropbacks for Trevor Lawrence ever since 2021. He was the first overall pick. Out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence ranks number 23 in the EPA CPOE composite. He has been a bottom third QB, despite being the number one overall pick in 2021. You're going to move to Zach Wilson. That's been extremely poor. He's ranked near the very bottom of the league. He was the number 2 overall pick. Trey Lance has ranked near the very bottom of the league, but doesn't even have enough snaps to qualify. Justin Fields, maybe a little bit more success, but number 30 out of 32 qualifying QBs. Justin Fields has had over 2,000 dropbacks of experience, but obviously hadn't processed nearly fast enough. And that was the concern coming out of Ohio State, but it has carried over to his time here in the NFL. Mac Jones actually climbing up the ranks. If you include the 2025 season where he started the 8 games for the 49ers, Mac Jones now 26 out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks since 2021 in the EPA CPOE composite. But he was top 10 QBR for San Francisco in 2025. So sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right system and the right place, the good support around you, because I think it's not just sometimes that, it's always that in the NFL. The most famous example is Steve Young, starting his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That wasn't a good system for him to succeed. Came over to the 49ers via trade, looked a whole lot better. Well, Mac Jones has now found himself in a system that is amenable to showcasing his talents. And I think that if he does have a chance to play this next season, and the 49ers can hope that's not the case because they want Brock Purdy to stay healthy throughout. But if Mac does have a chance to play a few more games this season, he'll probably surpass Trevor Lawrence in the composite efficiency rankings ever since that 2021 entry into the league. And we can say that Mac Jones has been the most efficient quarterback of the 2021 draft class. Now, of course, there was debate about who the 49ers would pick back in 2021. And the whole reason that they traded up at the time was because they were excited about the quarterback draft class, and it ended up being a bust overall. But they saw a salary cap crunch coming in 2021. They were also coming off the COVID year that year, which shrunk the salary cap. But the 49ers saw that they're paying a bunch of A-list players, and they had drafted, obviously, they had added a lot of good A-list players from the start of the regime in 2017 all the way through 2021. And they were saying, okay, well, we can't have a high-priced quarterback anymore. We have to move to the rookie quarterback deal. They had Jimmy Garoppolo at a bargain at the time, but quarterback prices had escalated so much that they figured it was the right time to take a big swing at the QB position in the draft so they could secure 4 to 5 years of cost control in the draft and also move to the dual threat era. Because Kyle Shanahan's Kyle Shanahan learned obviously from his dad, who was with the 49ers in the 90s, who then was the Broncos head coach in the later 90s. And Mike Shanahan's 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks were Steve Young and John Elway. And both of those guys could use their legs, but they're obviously precise passers to begin. Shanahan wanted his own version of what his dad had in Steve Young and John Elway, and he wanted to tailor that to his offense. And he felt that Trey Lance was going to be moldable clay, and he traded up to get Trey Lance. There was never going to be a drafting of Mac Jones in 2021. That's revisionist history. Those are false reports. Those are people trying to cover their asses because they predicted or even reported that the 49ers would draft Mac in 2021. It wasn't going to happen, not after they traded up, because they could have picked Mac with their original pick. He didn't go until number 12, maybe number 13 that year. The 49ers with number 11, where they originally sat in the 2021 draft, would have been able to select Mac Jones without trading up. They traded up for upside, and obviously they swung and they missed, but they were bailed out by a quarterback with even more upside the next year in Brock Purdy. And they found upside at a spot where you don't typically expect to find it in the NFL draft. The 7th round, the very final pick, number 262. But very ironically, Brock Purdy brought a physical characteristic that was more impressive than any of the first-round quarterbacks of the 2021 draft. And that was his 10-yard split. Not a marathon, not a middle distance run, not a sprint, but just a burst. Something that is most correlated when it comes to a speed measurement to a quarterback's movement ability in the pocket. You saw it in the flag football game last week. Tom Brady was able to sidestep a rush even at his advanced age, and then he was able to throw a touchdown into the back of the end zone to Stephon Diggs. It's not about movement in a long stretch. It is about movement in very short bursts at the quarterback position. That's what Purdy had tested at an elite level, and that's where Brock Purdy performs at an elite level. It just so happens that the 49ers were able to get that elite characteristic very late in the draft. And, there have been so many people talking about redrafts here over the course of the past couple of days. So I've chimed in on that, and there is absolutely no question that if Brock Purdy and the rest of the NFL players were all, say that everybody was expunged from their current rosters and the NFL held a veteran redraft where all teams could just pick from, everybody was a free agent and all teams could pick who they wanted on their football team, obviously knowing how good these players have been over their NFL careers, Brock Purdy would unquestionably go in the first round. Why? Well, because redrafts, or the concept of a redraft, is based on merit. It's based on what a player has actually already done in the NFL. Meanwhile, the actual draft, and we're entering that draft season right now, the NFL owners meetings this weekend are going to mark the formal turning of the page from free agency to the NFL draft. The actual draft is all based on projection, speculation, projection. It's not based on any concrete NFL performance. So guys like Brock Purdy can easily get overlooked. But if there were a redraft, and for debate purposes, we definitely have a redraft discussion right now, well, then actual merit, actual NFL performance is taken into account, because the whole point of the actual original draft is to pick good players, guys who perform well at the NFL level. And since Brock Purdy has performed at the very top of the league, the efficiency metrics don't lie since he's joined in 2022. He definitely would be a first-round pick, and the investment would be worth it for whatever team was lucky enough to get him, because he would continue producing at an extremely high level. NFL discourse has a huge problem with draftism. Even beyond the NFL draft, even years into a player's career, people cannot seem to let go of where a player was selected. Bill Walsh thought this was one of the dumbest things of all time. And he was right. As soon as the draft was over, he didn't care where a guy was drafted. He understood that the draft itself was a crapshoot, that the talent was in the building, and that it was time to develop that professional football talent. And whether the guy was drafted in the 7th round or the 1st round with the top overall selection really did not matter. If the 7th rounder outperformed the 1st rounder, you gave the job to the 7th rounder. The 49ers actually faced that exact scenario after Brock Purdy emerged in 2022. Pick number 262 was way better than Trey Lance, pick number 3. And the 49ers didn't blink. They went forward with Brock Purdy. It was the right decision. And they paid him the contract that he deserved and is currently more than earning with his play. He took a discount on his long-term deal with the 49ers. Could have been a $60 million player like Dak Prescott. He's a better player than Dak Prescott, but he's playing at $53 million per year for San Francisco. The 49ers have proceeded just like Bill Walsh would in this situation with Brock Purdy. Now, they probably got bailed out of the whole trade up to get Trey Lance. But back in 2021, they did view it as necessary to get a quarterback on a rookie deal, and they thought that taking a big swing would be their best chance at getting that talent. It is ironic that San Francisco found the combination of cerebral quarterback skills and physical quarterback skills the next season with the very final pick. The thought was that you'd have to trade up to get the physical skill set that was dominant at the quarterback position. Turns out the 49ers just needed to trade down to the very last pick of the draft. And the way that you trade down, by the way, is not by trading. It's by letting a free agent walk, the compensatory pick process. By letting C.J. Beathard leave and sign with Jacksonville to be Trevor Lawrence's backup, by the way, top quarterback in that 2021 draft. But by letting C.J. Beathard walk, the 49ers were able to earn the final 7th-round compensatory pick, so the very final pick of the 2021 draft. They used that on Brock Purdy. So C.J. Beathard walked so that Brock Purdy could run. One final piece. This is a look ahead to the 49ers in Australia. The Australian press is definitely excited about this game, and so are the Australian people. As of Thursday morning, 151,000 people were on the waiting list for tickets, many from interstate and overseas. So Australians want to get into the Melbourne Cricket Ground, one of the iconic stadiums in the world, the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere, by the way. It could fit about 100,000. Over 150,000 Australians, Americans, I'm sure a lot of different nationalities want to get to this game in Melbourne. General admission tickets are going to start at $95 for standing room and $140 for seated tickets. And then you could spend more on hospitality packages between $1,600 and $28 each. Now, the stadium is massive. It's originally built as a cricket ground, but the sport that it hosts the most is Australian rules football. It's also hosted rugby. And rugby pitch is about 75 yards wide, and there still is extra room on the sides between the end of the field and the stands. A football field is 53 1/3 yards wide, so there's going to be a big gap. If anybody's buying tickets, and I know they don't go on sale until a point of early April, I believe April 8th is when tickets go on sale. And it's April 8th in Australia, so mind you, it's going to be a different date in the United States. It's going to be a little bit earlier in the United States since Australia is on the other side of the date line. But when tickets go on sale, I might even recommend, and don't take my word for this without getting other opinions, but I might think that sitting higher up at the Melbourne Cricket Ground would be a better vantage point, because the football field should be fairly far away, especially if you're along the sidelines. Anyway, just a little piece of advice. Brock Purdy against Matthew Stafford. 49ers against the Rams, happening to open this season. And Mac Jones is going to be there too for San Francisco, unless something really crazy happens. But the 49ers very, very happy to keep their backup quarterback.